In my 30s, I lost 50 pounds and I swore I would never have to do it again. And then came my 40s. Hormone changes, perimenopause, anxiety, brain fog, and here we are again, starting all over. Only this time I've got Tirzepatide in my corner. Hi, friends. I'm Tia Pez, and welcome to my channel, TiaFit. And this is my honest journey for all my wins and my losses, products that I've tried, the good and the bad, and the truth about starting over. I started this channel for two reasons. One, because I thought maybe some of you out there might be able to relate to my story. And the second is to try and help keep myself accountable. I'm a mom of two amazing grown children. I got lucky and I have the best of both worlds. My son is on an aircraft carrier somewhere halfway around the world for the Navy. And my daughter is recently graduated high school and she's still figuring things out, pursuing an EMT career. Um, but yeah. So to kind of give you some context about why this time I'm going with Tirzepatide instead of last time when I lost the weight and lost 50 pounds, only eating healthy and working out, I think I need to take you back just a little bit further and kind of tell you my story. So 8 years ago, I was that mom everybody hated. I worked on school plays for my kids. Sewing costumes. Every Halloween was a huge deal at our house. We'd go over the top. Every school project was honestly insane. But I worked all the time for a majority of my kid's life. I was a single parent, and I would come home after working my 40-hour a week day job to sometimes even a second and third job to then sew and craft until 1 in the morning. I was extremely unhealthy. Um, and I lived for my kids, and it was worth it to a certain extent, but I also sacrificed my own health. So what happens is you go to the doctor and, your blood tests are borderline high cholesterol. They're warning you might have to start taking medication for that. And I'm like, I'm in my 30s. Then, not now. Um, and your blood pressure is high and just you're miserable. You hate going shopping. There's all kind of mental health issues that go along with that. Um, but yes, so at that point, my son was getting ready to start in high school, and my daughter was, I want to say she was like seventh grade, so junior high, middle school, depending on where you at. Everybody calls it different things. And for the next 2 years, I focused on me. They wanted to spend more time with their friends anyway at that point. So there wasn't a lot of volunteer opportunities anymore for me. It was more I'm dropping them off at their activities and they're calling me when they need rides. So I started doing cardio. At first, because that's what I was comfortable with. You go to the gym, you see all generally men over in the weightlifting section, and you don't want to look like the person who doesn't know what they're doing by going over and reading the instructions on the machines or doing anything wrong with free weights and because you have no idea what your form should look like and not exactly what muscles that you're working out and the purpose of them to figure out where you're supposed to be squeezing and pulling. And anyway, treadmills are easy. You can walk, you can jog. That's something that I was confident in. And I got to this point, though, where I'd say I was skinny fat, where I'd lost weight, but I plateaued and I still wasn't happy with my body. And at that point, I found, I don't know if you saw it on social media, but it was called Lady Boss. It's still around, but at the time that I joined and really got heavy into Lady Boss, was when Kaylin still owned it. So it's been sold to Caitlin, but Kaylin opened it. I related so much to her story. I loved her Big Fat Lies book. She's 5'2", I'm 5'2", and so you can't even hide 5 pounds when you're 5'2". There's nowhere to hide it. When you're shorter, every pound shows. So, her energy was infectious, but what was great, her protein's pretty good, and I'm gonna do a whole video separate to this all about different proteins that I've tried. But, I did her lifetime trainer. They don't even offer it anymore, but at the time, it was different workouts. You chose, like, what body part you were targeting, and then she had the workouts laid out for you, and they were kind of across of a hit, high intensity, so it was like weight training, and then you were doing something to, like, bring your heart rate up, like, jumping jacks or toe taps or a bunch of different things, and, what was great about her workouts is at the bottom, if you didn't know what the exercise was, she had individual YouTubes that were linked on every page for each separate workout of exactly what the exercise was and the equipment that you would need and modifications and different ways that you could do it so that I'd have my AirPods in. Everybody does at the gym because you're usually listening to music, but I could pause it and watch the YouTube. Nobody knew I was watching the YouTube, so I could learn how to lift. And when I first started doing Lady Boss's, workouts, they were hard and I couldn't finish them. And so I just kept trying. It's about 1%, focusing on the 1% better. And eventually I was able to get through them. And eventually they actually became easy. So at that point, I needed a new challenge. And I found a CrossFit like gym that was local in my neighborhood that I went to. And I learned that I actually love to lift weights. And I went to this gym. It's an amazing gym. It's still there, but I live in a different city now. Um, and they were my fit family. They were my gym family. And I worked out with them. I did all these crazy workouts. But even everybody there was so much stronger and in better shape than I was, but no one ever made me feel left out. And they used to compete in OCRs, which are obstacle course racing. So it's like Spartan races and Savage races and such. And I absolutely loved it. I got to join them on a lot of these. And in 2019, I did 19 races. So some of them were just like 5 and 10Ks and a half marathon, I think, in there. But a majority of them were the obstacle course racing, which the lengths of those can be absolutely insane. And I feel like they're way harder because they typically like to have those at like off season ski resorts. And so you're climbing mountains and doing obstacles while you do it. Why? Because we're insane. I don't know, but I really, really enjoyed it, and you push your body to things. Most of the time, I did not compete. I did it for my own personal record, my own PR. I did compete in, a couple just because what you find out is the course is less ripped up in the competition level than it is with the one that you do with everybody else. Um, and I did one time get to podium and get a sword. I'll post a picture. It was at the Mud Ninja, so you get filthy in these things. Um, and it was just I still have my sword, it's up, and it is a reminder of what you can actually accomplish. And it got to the point because I could hardly run at all to I was jogging 5 miles a day. I'd do my weightlifting, and then I would jog 5 miles a day, and a lot of times it'd be at the end of the day, and I'd try to go to sleep, and my mind would be going, and I couldn't stop, and I'm like, "I'm just gonna get up and run." And then I would run, and then I would come home, and I'd be like, "Now I can sleep." So it was absolutely awesome. And even during this journey, I think when before I found CrossFit and I was getting really good at Lady Boss, I even because I was inspiring other people, I would post pictures of myself um, dancing on treadmills and doing cardio jam. But then I thought, I really love sharing my knowledge with people. I mean, I've been trying this for years and yo-yoing and nothing ever got me to my goal weight and my strength and this and that. So I signed up to be a certified personal trainer through ISSA. And I also upgraded so that I could add the nutritionist package and the transformation specialist. See, this one's still wrapped in plastic because I never did anything with this. And even though the nutrition is not wrapped in plastic, I've looked at it only recently myself. I did finish the certification to be a personal trainer. And when I got to the end and I took this test, I was like, I don't want to be a personal trainer. And don't get me wrong, I learned a lot and it was incredibly educational for myself. But I'm going to do a whole separate video where I talk about the pros and cons of personal training certifications, and it's almost just like finding a doctor, where there are really awesome doctors that graduated from Harvard, and then there are ones where you're like, I'm getting a second opinion. And I'll leave it at that until my next video. But yes, and I thought, it would just absolutely crush me to have people not show up for themselves. And the truth is, people don't show up all the time. They sign up, they want to do it, and then when they get down to it, life gets in the way, their head gets in the way, all kinds of reasons. But regardless of the reason, I just I didn't want to, A, have my livelihood depend on that, especially because single mom still at that point, and B, um, I didn't want it to pop my bubble, my excitement for working out. And if anybody does any kind of crafting or anything, it's almost the same, where you do it for your own enjoyment, and then people are like, "You should sell this." And then that adds this whole stress layer and demand, and it kind of can ruin it for you. And then, you've lost something that you actually enjoy. And I didn't want that to happen either. So, the best part about all of this is that at this point, a year and a half, 2 years in of this wellness journey, and getting my blood tested, and blood pressure, perfect. No bad cholesterol, perfect. No risk of needing medications. And it just was an amazing reality of how resilient our bodies are and how they can bounce back after years and years of neglect. I mean, a lot of times you think you didn't get to the weight that you were because in 5 minutes it takes years of neglect to get where you're incredibly unhappy with yourself. But if you look at, and this is, people quit before, so much because it's not easy, before they get to the point where they're back and loving their bodies, is because you want those instant results, right? And you have to give yourself grace, because you didn't get heavy overnight. You're not going to lose it overnight. And I know that's easier said than done. So what happened after that? 6 years ago, so it was about 2 years into that journey, I changed careers. I got on at a company that I was super excited to, but unfortunately, that company's schedule is often based on seniority. So what happens is newbies get the shifts that are undesirable, typically night shifts. And so I started, and would get off at like 1 in the morning. I tried really hard to continue with my workouts. And I can even remember I still had a couple of races scheduled, because this was all in 2019. And I still had a couple of races scheduled with my gym family. And I got off at 1 a.m. and was going to West Virginia for my last Spartan race of the season. And I wanted this race so I get my trifecta medal and my trifecta jacket, which I have upstairs. Spoiler alert. And I drove 5 hours. I, got off at 1, drove 5 hours to the race, got to the race parking lot, got my parking spot. People were already starting to come in, because it was like 6 or 7 in the morning. I think the race started at like 8. And I slept an hour in my car, just an hour, set an alarm, got up, met everybody that was already there from my gym. They had gotten there the night before, but they were actually at the race now, and did this 14-mile race as a beast. And anybody will tell you, because it'll list it as like 12 miles or something on the website. And Spartans don't know how to count. They even start the race with that statement every single time, because it is always further than listed on the website, just so that you know. And I was the last one to finish, but I got through. I remember, around every turn going up every mountain because it was a ski resort that was off season, and there'd be these signs that are like, "You're almost there," and I'm like, "Liar! My watch says I'm only 5 miles in. My watch says I'm only 7." But I finally got to the end, and everybody from the gym was already finished. I had the worst time, but I finished, and that's what matters. And they were all cheering me on as I jumped over the fire and went over the finish line. And it was an amazing feeling. I got my last piece that I needed for my trifecta medal, and I couldn't be happier. Why did I do that? I have no idea. It was the most miserable race ever. Um, I was crazy, I don't know, but it was fantastic. And this was like, the 1st or 2nd month at the new job. And so slowly and slowly, it became harder to keep up with those workouts. The other thing that happened was at the end of that race, we all went out to eat, and my foot was hurting. So I'm in sandals because you get really muddy, you rinse off, you throw on some just comfy clothes and sandals, and we would go get food after. And I was rubbing my foot because it was really hurting. And Kelly, one of the girls at the gym, she was like, "Is your foot okay?" And I was like, "No, it hurts." And she looks down and she goes, "I think you have a bunion." And I didn't even know what a bunion was at that point, but I was like, "That's what old people get. I don't have a bunion. I don't have a bunion." Oh, but Kelly was right. I had a bunion that slowly, actually, not very slowly, um increased over a short period of time and got to the point where I couldn't even jog my 5 miles anymore. That last, like, 2 miles, I'd be, like, limping and just absolute pain, and I couldn't even when I could find time to work out, I couldn't work out like I wanted. And ultimately, I did have, surgery to remove that bunion, and if you don't know what it is an extra bone growth that actually pushes, like, your toes to kinda crooked, and they, shave off the extra bone growth, and then they have to cut your toe bone, like a slice of the pie out of your bone to straighten your toe back up and put those 2 pieces back together. And so I have permanent staples in those toes because that's how my doctor did it. There's a couple different ways that they can do it, and they're always experimenting with new ways. But, um he told me it would be about 6 months before I could jog, and truth be told, it was more like 2 years, and I'm about 3 to 4 years from the surgery, and it's still not 100%, so I have to do a lot of modifications. My body does not like to do lunges anymore, and, like, push-ups, I have to, like, prop my feet up on a Bosu ball, or, like, take my right bad foot over top of my left and kinda do push-ups on one leg. And anyway, regardless, um, there are modifications that I still have to do. So, I mean, I can consider myself lucky because there are a lot of people who have no issues at all, and they go, like, back to 100% normal, and then there are the extreme opposite where they have to have additional surgeries and this and that. I don't think I need additional surveys or yeah, additional surgeries, but, I didn't go back to 100%. But, I'll take 90, 85, 90. I'll totally take that. Any day of the week. That's good enough for me. I can work around that. Um, but yes, so I progressively gained all the 50 pounds back that I had lost. Um, between losing the workouts, and I really focused on climbing the corporate ladder. So all those extra times where I would normally have worked out, I focused on learning a new skill and growing my portfolio and really just focusing on my career, which is great because I've actually gotten several promotions in the last few years, except for my personal health. Again, I sabotaged my personal health. And then my fatigue was slowly increasing. And then we'll fast forward to last November. It's October of 2025, depending on when you're watching this. So, November of 2024, I woke up early November and just had hives covering myself from head to toe. And I have these hives. The only time I've ever had hives before, I was a corrections officer. Story for another day. But I was a corrections officer, so you wear latex gloves a lot to pat down inmates, to administer medications, to do all kinds of stuff. And one day I put a pair of gloves on, and my hands felt like they were on fire and they got hives. And I've been allergic to latex ever since. So I have to do latex free. And that's the only time. But I woke up one day, I had hives from head to toe. I was itching like crazy, no idea, and I've had them every day since. I saw 3 different doctors, 3, 3, 3. I saw 3 different doctors, and the last was an allergist who diagnosed me with chronic hives. So they were stress related and told me that I should just take bunches of Allegra. Suggested I buy them from Costco or Sam's because I was going to need them, that there wasn't anything I could do except for just ride the wave and treat the symptoms. That he couldn't allergy test me because I have to stay off of antihistamines for 24 hours and then I'd already be covered anyway. But then the other thing is they are pressure triggered. So, especially like waistbands, bra and waist, to like the tops of my feet where my socks press. Those are usually where the hives start first and are the most intense. So when they prick you for the allergy test, because it's pressure, those will pretty much automatically trigger um, hives, even if I don't have them there at that time. So he said, you're just going to end up with a bunch of false positives. And he put me on lots and lots of Allegra. The 24-hour pills I was taking anywhere from 2 pills in a 24-hour period to 6 pills in a 24-hour period, depending on how bad my hives were. And, I would say for the last 4 or 5 months, I was consistently at 2 pills a day, about 12 hours apart, and then, but it still was like, they weren't going away, and I would wait for them to show up before I'd take them, and it would take about an hour for it to fully about 30 minutes for them to stop itching, and about, an hour for the hives themselves to actually go away. Um, but, nobody was willing to, like, take time to figure out actually what's causing them because it's just stress, just stress. Um, so, well, 4 or 5 months ago, let's fast forward a little more. Um, I all of a sudden woke up and I had phantom right shoulder issues. And I thought I slept on my shoulder funny. And I didn't injure myself. I wasn't working out, at that time. And I just thought, like, I pinched a nerve, and then I had limited mobility, so I, like, um, reaching behind me to, like, shut a door or pick up my purse in the car, all of a sudden, it was like, "Oh," like, my purse was, like, a gold bar and weighed 1,000 pounds. It was like, "Oh my gosh," and I had no idea what I did, and I kept trying to, like, and I could, but then if I didn't have weight, like, I could still, like, twist my shoulder all around, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, and one of the girls at work was like, "Maybe a frozen shoulder." Again, a term I had never heard of. So I start, looking into it, and yeah, I'm pretty sure then I had frozen shoulder. I don't love going to doctors, doesn't mean you shouldn't, and let me also say none of this is medical advice. This is all my stories, things that I like, products that I use, which you should always talk to your own healthcare provider before doing anything. Everybody's situation and conditions are different, so they warrant different solutions. But pretty sure I had frozen shoulder, which was the first kind of realistic sign that I might be in perimenopause, because it's often happens to women in perimenopause. And so I'm actually coming out of it. So it took about 3 months to be at like the peak, and because it slowly just got worse. And then I've been taking supplements and doing some other stuff, but we'll get there. And my shoulder is on the mend. I had did chest flies in my workout this morning, and I felt it when I went to do the chest flies, and I started with, like, 15-pound weights. I'm like, "Oh, that's not gonna happen." So I had to go down to 10, which is kinda stinky because this arm was totally good, but this one couldn't. But anyway, um, so it is getting better. Um, and the other things that I was realizing is that brain fog was like, I couldn't think of, like, everybody has the moments where it's like, oh, what's the word, right? But like, it was almost every word. I had my direct reports, they're not my direct reports. They've dotted lines to me, but people on my team at work were, like, literally finishing my sentences constantly because I was like, um, um, yes, because they would say what I was thinking. And it was getting really, really bad. My brain fog was outrageous. My fatigue, all-time high. I would wake up tired. I would wake up and, like, within 5 minutes, it felt like I needed to go back into a coma like a bear because I just felt like I didn't get any sleep ever, and I was having trouble sleeping. I started to get night sweats here and there. It wasn't consistent. It was like 2 to 3 times a week I'd have night sweats. Um, and then my anxiety. Oh, my anxiety. My anxiety was just off the charts every single day. And inflammation and hives. So my inflammation all-time high. Um, like, even the stretching when I would try to work out was it was rough. Like, tying my shoe, rough. And you don't even think about it because you know you're overweight, but you don't f like, if you've never had inflammation internally, like, um, you it's hard to explain, but, um, it was really high and painful and you just don't kinda know what it is, I guess, but then when people talk about it, you're like, "Oh, that's what oh." Like, things start to click in your head. And then I needed to lose weight, right? So, I knew I needed to lose weight. I wanted to get back to my healthier weight. I actually really like working out, and I just didn't have the energy. I wanted to so bad, and I have a gym in my garage because I hate going to the gym anymore because traffic where I live now is awful. Um, and I couldn't even stay awake half the time, falling asleep in the car. Like, it was a problem, and I knew I needed to get help. And my boss at work was having some similar issues. She's only a couple years older than me. And so we were walking to a meeting one day and she saw somebody that she knew. And she told me after we ran into her that she has lost a ton of weight. Obviously, I don't know what she looked like before, but she looked fantastic. She was very pretty. And I definitely didn't see overweight on her at all. And so during their conversation, I can't remember her name, but my boss was like, "You look amazing. Like, I haven't seen you and what did you do?" And she was like, "I started Joy and Blokes." And so this is where my boss and I found out about Joy and Blokes. Now, I'll have a full video coming soon about my experience with Joy and Blokes and why ultimately I did not stay with them. So you'll need to stay tuned and learn about my experience with Joy and Blokes. But barring that, there are things that I am grateful and thankful for. And we had a whole discussion about um, the blood tests and the different things that she was on, including a GLP-1. And yeah, it was very informational. So I went and got my blood test done through Joy and Blokes. And I paid for the middle one. There's three different ones. And I wanted the middle one specifically because the cheapest one does not have a cortisol level. At least it doesn't at the time of me purchasing it, which I purchased it beginning of September. Um, and, yeah, end of August, beginning of September, somewhere around there. And I wanted to test my cortisol level. So I got the middle one and had my blood drawn, got the test, set up the nurse practitioner call with Joy and Blokes, who walked me through all of my blood tests. And there was a lot of things that was concerning. My vitamin D was concerning, my B12 was concerning, a lot of things that just you think you probably know, but it's nice to actually see your blood to see what's going on. And we get down to like where the liver stuff is and the inflammation stuff. And before she starts talking to me about that, she goes, "Have you ever considered a GLP-1?" And I said, I was just talking to my husband about it yesterday. And because when I lost the weight the first time, I didn't even take supplements. I substituted food. I ate healthy. I worked out all the time. And truth be told, those things were just not working for me this time. Even though like it's time consuming and um but really, in the energy part was a huge issue, but even when I have tried it off and on through the last few years, um, just not working for me anymore. So I thought, maybe because when I lost it the first time and Ozempic came out, you saw all those commercials. Oh, oh, Ozempic. Anyway, um, but I was like, oh, it's cheater meds, cheater meds. But here I am in my 40s, in perimenopause, trying the same things that worked before, and they were just not working. And I said, so I was considering if I'm a candidate. And she said, that makes me really happy to hear because your insulin resistance is a little bit high for my liking. So I'm not insulin resistant yet, but I'm in that yellow. Um, and then she said, your inflammation on your blood results is just really crazy high. And then some other stuff with like my liver and this and that. And she was like, so I really think you would benefit from Tirzepatide. She said specifically, not semaglutide, Tirzepatide, because there are long-term studies that are starting to come out to show the benefits of like the inflammation and some other things that you would benefit from. So for those of you out there that do not know the difference between a Tirzepatide and a semaglutide, let me educate you because I have been going down the rabbit hole ever since this conversation with the nurse practitioner. And semaglutide is GLP-1. So that is your Ozempic for name brand and your Wegovy. So for Tirzepatide, it is a GLP-1, and then it is also a GIP. There are two hormones that actually they're synthetic versions of the hormones that get released when you're eating. So those two together have had a better results than the data shows better results than the Ozempic. Now, the Ozempic still works, but you've got different choices for different bodies, right? And then just so that everybody knows, also, you have GLP-1 hyper or super responders, and then you have some people that are um, non-responders. So what that means is, and there's really no way of knowing if you would be one of these until you actually take the medicine, but you have people who respond really well to it and lose weight quite easy on it. And then you still have certain people, but it's a very small percentage that are non-responders and it takes them much longer. So everybody's body taking these medications kind of respond differently. So, she specifically was suggesting the Tirzepatide, and ultimately, I did lots of research, finally found a company that was, 1, in my budget, and with a, compound Tirzepatide, and so it is a telehealth company, and the other thing outside of just being in my budget, they have really good ratings, so, like I said, you're still gonna have that small percentage, so it was, like, almost 5 stars, but there were, like, 2 or 3 where it was like, "This didn't work for me." Well, they might be non-responders, right? That doesn't mean that the medication isn't ineffective, but you just don't know. So, but that was such a small, and like there were lots of telehealth companies that I looked at, none with actually as good as ratings. And so I went with this other company, and you'll have to see the other video to find out the name of that company. And I have been on it for almost 4 weeks. So I give myself my injection once a week on Tuesdays. Today is Sunday, so I have 2 days before I take my month two, and I'm going from 2.5 milligrams to 5 milligrams starting on Tuesday. So right now I'm almost at 4 weeks, just shy. And my results are 14.9 pounds down from 4 weeks ago. Now, a lot of people are going to say, that's unhealthy. I think you're forgetting about something I talked about earlier, and that is my inflammation. My inflammation is like night and day, even around my face, but I can bend over to tie my shoe when I stretch as part of my workouts. It's I'm so much more flexible. I think large portion of my almost 15, and maybe I'll even hit 15. I got another day or two. Um, but is my inflammation. So it's whenever I have worked on exercise and trying to eat healthier and stuff, it is not uncommon for me. I almost always drop 7 pounds. And sometimes it's also because I usually give up Coca Cola. I was not on Coca Cola. I had already given that up before I started this shot. But I also I started some additional supplements, based on the things that, my doctor I did find a local HRT doctor after talking to Joy and Blokes, who let me know, and I didn't know that this was a thing, that if your vitamin D is low, you cannot lose weight. So I've been taking a lot of other different supplements in addition to, making sure I'm doing protein and water, and you'll have to find out what my favorite protein is in another video. But yes, 14.9 pounds month one on um compound Tirzepatide. Still getting all these terms down. So the compound Tirzepatide also has B12 in it, which is absolutely almost impossible to overdose on B12. Your body only uses what it can use when it comes to B12, and then you pee out the rest. So that's one thing that you never have to really worry about. Um, so um, I also wanted to tell you why I named my channel the way I named my channel, just a little more because I would love for you to be a part of the TiaFit tribe. But when I lost the 50 pounds the first time, I got myself a celebratory fossil watch. And it had little diamonds all around the face. And I had it engraved on the inside of the watch that said, like a phoenix, you will rise from the ashes and become something beautiful. So I have these different stages in my life, and I just have always felt like I relate to the phoenix, and I am shedding that old life again. And out of the ashes, I will become something beautiful. And I hope that you'll join me along the way. So that's where I decided on the phoenix as my spirit animal in this journey. And I hope you come along with it. And I hope that this has given you some insights and a little back knowledge on me as we go forward. And I can't wait to talk to you more about different things that I've tried and enjoyed, and tricks and tips that work for me that I see kind of the opposite sometimes out. For instance, not using the 40-ounce cups. I prefer to use the 20-ounce cups, even though I have the 40-ounce cups, but you'll find out why. I'll see you next time.